Hello, hello. Thank you for coming back for another week with Tea with Terry. I am so excited for this week's guest. Channyn Lynne Parker is someone I have had the privilege of knowing for a while, but I want them to introduce themselves and I have a few announcements and then we're going to get into our conversation. So go right ahead.
Well, thank you for having me, Terry. And thank you, audience. I'm Channyn Lynne Parker. She, her pronouns. Um, I feel like I'm one of those most known, unknown people. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation and yeah, all that other good stuff.
Yes. So, just so you all know, for the folks who've been watching, we've been having conversations with people about how do we get to zero and what does that actually mean. For the folks who have been keeping up in the comments and asking questions, what we mean when we say get to zero, we mean we would like to see a future where we are not seeing zero people testing for HIV, but a functioning zero where
Yes.
we are seeing less people that we've ever seen testing for HIV, more people on PrEP, and we are understanding there's an education behind it where that one population is not most infected by this virus. So with that being said, I wanted to give an opportunity to try to give some knowledge to that, but also give room to ask questions because that could be very confusing whether you're living with HIV or not. Also, I will be at the AIDS Walk and Run. I am looking forward to seeing a lot of you all. I will be running, so give me some water if y'all see me. But yeah, I have an opportunity to talk to Channyn Lynne Parker, who is the new CEO. Well, I say new CEO, but
Newish,
you've
yeah.
been here for a while now,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I want to talk about what path got you here to Brave Space Alliance. And then we'll go talking about what is Brave Space Alliance. So let's talk about that journey.
That is a fantastic question. My path. You know, I always start at a point where a lot of folks go, how is that relevant? I was a shampoo girl for the longest time. For those of you for those of you who don't know, a shampoo girl is just an assistant who helps other stylists by prepping their clients before they get their hair done. Why is that important for me to mention? One, because there are so many individuals who are in service industries, who are gig workers, who rely on those things for their necessities. But also, too, that type of work trained me to, it trained me to serve. You know, it trained me to put other people's needs at the forefront. It trained me to be moldable, listen. So, you know, aside from that, I started off working with individuals who were born HIV positive, called perinatally infected young people. I started off that at the University of Chicago.
Okay.
I did that work for about 2 years, 3 years, and I fell into it.
Yeah.
I literally fell into that work. I was at a community forum that a friend of mine couldn't attend.
Okay.
And I was speaking to the needs of the ballroom community. Mm-hmm. Somebody evidently liked something that I had to say, and they invited me to coffee or tea. Because I don't drink coffee. Never even tasted this stuff. Fun fact. But and this individual said to me, you know, there's something about you, and I'd love to offer you a small position. Me being the young person that I was, I said I wasn't looking for a job. And this person said in response, well, I wasn't looking to hire anyone. Do you want the job or not? And I took it. And it was such meaningful work, such meaningful, impactful work. I went on to work at Chicago House, and I helped to build out their Trans Life project. Stayed there for about 5 years. Went on to manage the youth development program at the Broadway Youth Center.
Mm-hmm.
Then suddenly my life took this trajectory, this turn, where I went into more administrative work, focusing on external relations. It's rare that a person can couple being administrative with being on the ground.
Yeah.
And I went on to be the first member of the executive leadership team at Howard Brown Health, first trans woman, first trans person in Howard Brown Health's 40-year history at that time. And then all of a sudden, I was on the board of directors here at Brave Space Alliance. There was a moment of crisis that occurred, and by no means was I dreaming of this job. Oh my goodness, no. But duty called. This work means so much. This space means so much. And I had to rise to the occasion. So I do believe that trajectory I took you down was meant for this moment. Yeah. And it's meant for other moments in the future that I have yet to encounter.
Wow. First of all, I just think that it's incredible, the trajectory. I think that I think I met you when I was a young person getting services through BYC, and it's always really great to see people of color, but especially Black trans women in positions of leadership. And when I hear your story about that trajectory, I think about like, what does that mean for like the future of trans women, you know? And I think that like for me, I've always like wanted to make sure that I'm not taking up space in places that I shouldn't be in, but also understanding my privilege, because I know the world will give me the privilege of being like male speaking and things like that. But I think that you've broken barriers in spaces that were unimaginable at some certain point. So I want to take a moment to like appreciate that, you know? I also want to say that, you know, in my experience with you, you've always been someone to pour into people under you. You know, I remember when I was trying to start working at the Brave Space Alliance, it was a gang of us. Like, I'm not Brave Space Alliance, at Broadway Youth Center. You know, a gang of us all decided we just wanted to start doing the work, and you were one of the ones who really gave us the tools, what we needed, what we should be saying, and I think that you also did a really good job of opening my eyes to some of those things that I did not understand. You know, some of those drawbacks to like some of the work that like is a little harder to do when we think about like housing, you know, and what does it look like to give resources in areas that are not on the north side, you know. And I think that that's something I couldn't understand until I really met you and like having conversations with you. And I want to touch on something you said, because you said you came into this work doing prenatal care of people living with HIV, but also speaking to the needs of Ballroom. And I think that that's something we really haven't really touched on this season too much, is how that connect has been really like part of the journey to zero. So if you can talk to me about like what that relationship has looked like for you, what have you seen some like benefits, but also some drawbacks, you know?
What a fantastic question. So I'm sure I have house members who may or may not be watching. So I actually belong to the House of Balenciaga. I don't walk, so don't go to balls looking for me. You won't find me there. But here's what I'll say. I used to wonder, like, well, how is ballroom relevant to real life?
Right.
And, you know, is that something that you can even put on a resume? You know, I used to love saying that, and other folks did too. But for those of you who may be familiar with a particular category called realness, it's on the surface is about judging an individual's ability to be indistinguishable from their cisgender counterparts or their cis heteronormative counterparts.
Okay.
Okay. It has its things there,
Right.
but, we won't go there.
Okay, yeah. Because I was like, I'm glad you brought it up, but like,
Yeah.
because no, I want you to finish your point. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I'll say this. What I began to realize was that category, ballroom in of itself, is a microcosm of the larger society that we live in, that all the world is a stage. And ultimately, no matter who you are, what you do, no matter how educated you are, no matter how learned or degreed you are, when you're sitting in front of somebody, you've got to sell it. You've got to make them know it. You've got to convince them, this panel of individuals in this moment, why you are the one to execute and bring forth this thing out of all the other individuals that you see around you. So I began to realize, Channyn, you have been incorrect. That ballroom is actually a very useful skill set that we can take with us in this world. Because sometimes it's not always about you being able to have all of those skills right then and there, but it's you being able to present yourself in a way that says, get me through the door and I can take it from here.
Oh, wow. That is powerful. And I want to say, for a lot of radical gays like myself and queers, I think that we get trapped with that first part of realness. Like, like we shouldn't be using this to judge people by like gender norms and things like that. But that is the first time I've ever really had it explained to me in a way that like that's also about survival, being able to like fake it till you make it. Essentially, I think that like even in this work when I first started, a lot of it I didn't have a degree. I'm in school right now, and I think that a lot of it was essentially faking it until I made it. Like I knew community, so it wasn't even me faking it. It was me using all those skills, all those classes, the prodigies of pride, empower, all those things, and like putting it into use when talking to somebody about HIV and things like that. So it's like I can appreciate that in such a different light, and I think that like that's something that we all have struggled with a little bit, like finding that relevancy there. And I guess my next question to you is when you think about the relationship that Ballroom has to this initiative of like getting to zero, what are some of like your thoughts about the successes, some things you've seen going really well, but also some of those drawbacks and some things that could use some improvement?
Okay. I'm going to take it from a socio-emotional societal place, and I'm going to take it from a public health place. Okay.
Love that.
From a socio-emotional place, oftentimes we think about ballroom, particularly categories like realness and such, as being toxic.
Right.
You have an individual here who is standing in front of a group of individuals who's judging this person on their ability to blend seamlessly into cis heteronormative society.
Right.
And we know the reality is that none of us should have to do that. But here is the caveat. Here is what I will say. I was one of those people that always would say things like, oh, ballroom is not real. Oh, you can't put that on a resume. You can't get a job with that. But then all of a sudden, one day it dawned on me. As the old saying goes, all the world is a stage. And we are all selling it one way or another. No matter what your level of education is, your degree, your background, when you're sitting in front of that individual who is interviewing you for the first time, your posture needs to be presented in this way that convinces them that you're the one. When you are at the bank, when you are on a date, when you are doing anything in this society, what you begin to realize is you present yourself in a way that says, I am the one that you need. Everything that you're looking for is right here. I know that you've got all these other individuals sitting here on this panel, on this floor right now, but you need to pay attention to me because I'm the one. And we're all doing that. more or less. All of us now. Now, from a public health standpoint, what has been done well? What's been done well is that individuals in public health have realized that within this microcosm called Ballroom, they are reflective of the community that is in need of PrEP, PEP, antiretrovirals, treatment. What they've done wrong is purely focused on just that and not from a holistic place.
Yeah.
At some point, we have to be about people progression and not solely focused on viral suppression. You know, within communities, within the Ballroom, you're facing individuals with houselessness, behavioral mental health, other comorbidities. You know, we have more than just HIV, right? We get high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, so many other things.
Yeah.
So I think, again, the plus is public health has done a great job of identifying a core group of individuals that are in need of these services. They haven't done so well at being a bit more nuanced in their service delivery and support.
Yeah, I think that that's something that is powerful when I think about being someone who has not only been a recipient of resources and spaces like that, and I've been on, I was on PrEP since I think I started it at 18, and I was taking it until I was 30, and I think that it just became something that was regular, something that almost to a point where I was like, anytime someone tried to talk to me about it in a like professional setting, I was like, I'm good. I'm on PrEP. I've known about PrEP since I was 18. You don't got to explain it to me. And I think that with my experience, I've talked about in the show about, screening positive and things like that. I think that there was a lot of opportunity where I should have asked questions in ways that like, I thought, these people are coming into my community. They know more than I do, but I agree sometimes that before the PrEP, like housing was really, really important to me. And I think that I got in a housing program, and that was the only reason that I was able to like really keep up with PrEP, in a way that I felt like this is something, that works for me. I think that when I came in opportunities where I couldn't, like PrEP became an issue was when I was like housing and like going through my housing instability and didn't know where I was going to live, and going to an appointment wasn't as important. And I don't think that you're the first person to say it. I think that you are saying something that has been said for so long, but I think forgets when we think about this journey to zero. I'm a public policy student at USC, and I think a huge thing I think about when I think about the journey to zero is, what does public policy look like when we think about it? Like, does it look like, and I would love your opinion on it, does it look like a policy that addresses housing instability, not just for people who are LGBT, but more specifically, something I've noticed in doing this work is people who are transgender, trans men, a lot of people who have to go back into like a closet to essentially find housing that feels safe,
That's right.
So, I mean, what are your opinions on that?
I think that getting to zero is a noble aspiration, one that we have to, make come to life.
Right.
But getting to zero focuses on the pandemic of HIV and AIDS more than it does the whole individual. And yes, by and large, there are many individuals leading getting to zero efforts who absolutely do consider the whole person.
Right.
But I do believe that on a whole, we're lacking because we are hyper-focused on HIV, which is important.
Right.
But to answer your question, we need to begin to ask ourselves, we're focused on getting to zero, but how are we preparing for zero?
That's powerful.
So what happens when 2030 is here? Oh, it's 2030. Yay, we're here. There's no more new positives being identified. Will that be the case tomorrow? Will that be the case the day after tomorrow?
Yeah.
And now that we've gotten to zero, similarly to marriage equality, who's going to jump off the bandwagon suddenly?
Wow. Yeah.
Who's going to just suddenly say, well, that's done? What happens to an entire generation of individuals who are very versed with knowing their CD4, knowing their viral load, but don't know about their HDL and LDL cholesterol, who don't know about their liver and kidney counts, who don't know about these other things that they have to contend with living living with HIV or, not living with. Mm-hmm. It's time for us to begin to think about. So, and I know I feel like I'm going a long way around answering your question.
No, go ahead.
My mother said something to me a long time ago, even though she was talking about finance, but it's very relevant. She said, your generation worries a lot about dying young. Mm. She said, a lot of you are going to live to be very, very old. And what are you going to do?
Mm. Oh, that scares me a little bit because I think about that a lot too.
She said, a lot of you are going to live to be very old. She goes, are you prepared to be 60? Ooh. Are you prepared to be 70? Are you prepared to be 50? And I just was like, oh my God. She said, your generation, all you all think about is dying young. She goes, one of you is going to live to be 100. Yeah. So as we have developed miraculous medicines that are letting people who are HIV positive live to be full life expectancy, what does that mean for housing? What does that mean for general health? What does that mean for all of the other things that just happen with age? Yeah. I don't know if we're doing a good job preparing for zero. We're just focused on getting there, so.
I'm so happy you brought that up because I think that's really relevant. I think that that's something that a lot of people in my generation even think about, like the idea that just making it till tomorrow, my mom calls it, you live in the microwave generation.
Yeah.
And I come from the other generation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I've always took that to mean that, like, the whole, like, I am a person, I want it quick if I can get it. Mm-hmm. But I've also understand that, like, some things take thought, processing things and understanding and planning things. And I do think about some part of this conversation of getting to zero for me is, what does that mean for the people like myself who are living with HIV?
Sure.
When we get to zero, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Because there's still a lot of stuff about living with HIV that I'm just learning. Mm-hmm. And I've been positive for 4 months now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think there's also just a lot of things I'm getting from my elders and community about aging with HIV to think about, and ask about, like, how does this medication affect this? That it's just a lot of education about just living with HIV, which is the other side of it. That I think that every time I see something that's like, oh, come in for a free HIV test and we'll pay you.
Right.
I always suggest, I even just recently suggested this in an agency's comment where it'd be really cool. I think this is a great idea, but it'd also be really cool to add something where if you're living with HIV, you come in and you're undetectable, or we can find get you to undetectable. We'll give you an incentive too.
That's a great idea.
I think that, like, it speaks to the idea that we not only want to get to zero, but we also want to do something about keeping that functioning zero. Like,
that's right.
And I think that that's a really good point that you're even bringing up too, is like, when we get to zero, like, how do we stay there? Like,
and I love that you're speaking to the multiple layers of what zero can be.
Yeah, exactly.
That and I've never heard anyone say that before. We're thinking about getting to zero as an absolute, but you're thinking about the multiple realities of zero. Zero for a person living with HIV means undetectable.
Exactly.
Zero for a person who is not living with HIV means not getting it. Like
Mm-hmm.
what that's that I that's your book.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I even think about the idea of conversations I've had in private or just on my own with people who've seroconverted
Yeah.
from HIV to like things like AIDS. I think that
Yeah.
that also talks about
Mhm.
like that's still happening,
Yes.
It's something that doesn't happen as often, but it still happens. Or the idea that there are coupled like health risks and like things that come up that
Mhm.
come with living with HIV
Mhm.
that need to also be addressed too. Now, I think aging is something
That's
that
right.
a lot of my elders are telling me about, and I think that that is something that I have just been talking about more and more,
Good.
just because I want to know what are we doing to really address this? Is it because I know it's about keeping people alive, but this is also something that is affecting community to a point where you've had folks who don't want to take medication, and then
Mhm.
let's just be real, people navigate their own health the best way that they
That's
can,
right.
and it may not always look like taking this pill every day. So
Mhm.
I think that those are the minds I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about getting to zero. I think about the idea that getting to zero is great, but what does it look like staying there? What does it take staying
Sustaining
there?
zero.
Oh God, yeah, that's even better. Sustaining zero.
Sustaining zero is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I want to talk to you about Brave Space Alliance. I
Yes.
think that one, it's an incredible agency.
Thank you.
The fact that you all are on the South Side speaks volume. I
Mhm.
think that I grew up on the South Side, and I remember the first time someone told me a safe space for young people to go to was Sonora Hosted Youth Space,
Yeah.
and that was all the
Sure.
way. For me, I'm from 53rd of Michigan, so
Uh-huh.
I'm getting on the red line all the way to Addison, and then I found out about BYC
Mhm.
at the time when they were over the Chipotle, which in my opinion was way better. But anyway,
I've heard.
but I think that that was my experience as a young person at 15 trying to find safe space and like a place to talk about like the sex I was having, to like people and not feel like ostracized by it. This is literally in my neighborhood,
Mhm.
like my backyard as a kid, and I would have never in my like wildest dreams as a little 15-year-old thought that a place like this could
Yeah.
exist. So I want to talk about like one, how does a place like this
That's
exist?
right.
And then two, some of the work that you all get to do here.
That's a great question. So, as you stated, I've been the CEO of Brave Space for um, a year and 3 months.
Okay.
A year and 3 months now. And a space like this gets to exist because of the stated need of community members like yourself and others who know that communities of color, and I'm not even going to say communities of color, Black communities, because we use
Mm-hmm.
color so broadly.
Yeah.
We use that so broadly. Black communities, and I know brown communities, a lot of other communities, but I'm talking about Black people because Brave Space is a Black organization.
I love that.
Oh, yeah. Black communities are resource depleted.
Mm-hmm.
We live in resource deserts. And that also means access to spaces where we're able to get food sources, clothing sources, just a space to share community. So that's what Brave Space exists for.
Mm-hmm.
It exists to fill in the gap of those those areas where people don't necessarily have access to those things, with the exception of having to go way across town.
Right.
So, under my leadership, one of the most important things for me was to make sure that this space remains stable.
Mm-hmm.
And that looked like ensuring the finances,
Okay. Yeah.
were here for us to continue to do the work that's really important for us to do. But to take a step back, what does Brave Space do? So we're a Black-led, trans-led, TLBGQ plus organization. We lead with the T because we know of the LGBTQ. The T is the most marginalized, who is
Yeah.
left oftentimes with the least amount of access in all those areas. And we have 4 pillars of dignity: health, housing, food, and identity. And we're going to add a 5th one on there too: advocacy.
Yeah.
So we have a pantry, we have a clothing closet, we do image empowerment, which means we have a barber on site, we have a stylist that comes in and helps people, to look and feel their best. We are kicking off our behavioral health program, also doing some on-site medical programs in concert with the University of Chicago, and so many other things, right? Group supports. We have an on-site therapist now, a lot of different things. Brave Space, Brave Space's inception was more so around a call to advocacy during a heightened societal a moment, I meant to say, particularly during the George Floyd incidents.
Yeah.
And Brave Space was very boots on the ground, fist in the air, And while those efforts are needed, while those things are important, I'm a service provider. I don't pretend to be anything else. I'm a service provider. And what I know is that while there's so many injustices going on in the world, the injustice that I see is the injustice of being able to lack fundamental resources.
Yeah.
So for me, under my leadership, Brave Space Alliance has recalibrated itself to being a service provider, to being a place where individuals are able to access essential needs, a place where individuals are able to access community as well. Yes, there are many injustices in this world, but here, our corner of tackling injustice is for people to have dignified resources so they're able to take care of themselves the best way they can.
Yeah. Well, it's incredible the work you all do here. I think that I got a chance to walk around when I first got here. And I remember when I first came here and got a tour, and you all were like switching some things over. And it's incredible to see what you all have like developed in the time. I say this as someone who's had in food instability and some like just spans of my life. The fact that you all offer fresh produce,
Yes,
is incredible. Name brand, actual, food that, people don't feel like that they can get at a store, can't even afford at a store a lot of the times. But this is food people like, I think that that's incredible. I think that like you also are doing something so different in your activism here. And I want to say activism here because what you are doing is activism. This is activism in a form of service
Thank you for
providing.
naming that. I appreciate
And
that.
I want to name it because it is, And I have learned too, activism looks so different, And I think that we sometimes get, myself, definitely when I was younger, get caught in the idea that activism looks like boots on the ground in the street marching.
That's right.
I've been there, done that, and I also have done a lot of the work behind the scenes, a lot of the advocating in meetings where people are talking about like, well, why do we need to be on the South Side? Or like, should we be at this event? And like, this is why, this is how you
That's
find
it.
community. And I think that I had to even learn that like, that's my form of activism, and I think that like you're doing exactly that here, and I think that like it is important that we name it because it's a form of serving like a resistance,
That's right.
in a space that in a world that will perpetually tell Black people that you aren't supposed to be successful or you should only use your money to pay your rent, your gas bill, and your phone bill and go to work. We push back against that and we provide you resources that you actually like and can use for other things. I think that resources like a free haircut for a kid that like is trying to figure out like either identity or job interview is huge, and I don't think that we often really understand that part of like the service work. I think that again, the HIV test, the STI screening, and we get the money if we can pull in like those numbers,
Sure.
but like it's the whole person
Right.
that you all serve here with Brace Based Alliance. I think that something else that I noticed while walking through here, and you can speak to it, is it feels so communal. Like
Yes.
it really does feel as though I remember when I first came in, people were just at the front desk so nice,
Mm-hmm.
talking, and we've worked in spaces, so we also know
Yes.
that like it's not always like
No.
that. But I think that like there's an aroma here that you all have created. I don't know if it's like a affirmation or something, but can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So here's the thing. At the end of the day, regardless of this place being a community center, a nonprofit, at the end of the day, customer service
Yes.
is still important. We have a tendency to believe that customer service is for a store, it's for a restaurant. No, like this is a business at the end of the day. This is a business, and the individuals who walk through this door is what continues to make us a viable place. So, therefore, we need to make sure that one, our customer service is on par, you know. Two, again, and I'm gonna say one there, two there. But one, everybody up front needs to remember that everybody who comes through here, and I'm not even gonna mince words here, had better have a dignified experience.
Mm.
That means for our visitors, that means for our individuals who need essential needs, that means for everyone who comes through these doors, that they are entitled to a dignified experience. So for me, that is etched and rooted in our customer service here, that the people here are a part of community. They have a place here. We need them. They need us. And we are intentionally symbiotic in our approach to who we serve and what we do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even one thing I've even noticed, and I know this doesn't happen all the
Mm,
time, but the idea that someone can come in like myself in community, or
yes.
anybody would say, I have a resource that I'd like to leave here
Hmm.
that I think your clients could benefit, or, can I talk to you for a second?
Hmm.
You, as the CEO, I think that that is something that not is, it's not only rare, it's something that's almost unexpected,
Yeah.
and I think that you give space for people to be heard. And a lot of
Yeah.
times in this work, I've even realized that a lot of people are upset because they just want to be heard, because
Yes.
they literally go places and they feel like people aren't listening to them,
Yes.
And I think that that has solved so many of like even my like escalations with a lot of
Hmm.
people. Is just like, I'm just sitting here to hear you,
That's right.
I'm not going to disrespect you, even if you disrespect me,
Hmm.
and I think that you all have captured some of that
Yeah.
that essence,
Oh, that's so important what you just said. In our community, we love to say I'm a match your energy.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, sometimes you have to rise above that. And I know that there are some people who would criticize that.
Mhm.
But believe me, during my tenure here, oh my God, I've had to rise above a lot. I can't match everyone's energy. My
Right.
goodness, because there's a larger thing here that I need to focus on. And that is the individuals that walk through those doors. And I I demand that everybody who works here is as committed to those individuals who walk through this door as I am. This is a place to work. This is a place where we do serious, serious work. This is not a kick it spot. This is not a place where you are employed based off of your social capital or proximity to the CEO. You are here to do a service. And the moment that you are no longer serious about doing that service, then we need to think about other alternatives.
Right.
Okay? Because that's how serious I am about the work that we do. I take issue with how oftentimes individuals make blanketed statements
Mm.
about any space or institution based off of their personal view or experience. Because what happens is we have a tendency to lose sight and forget that somebody needs what that space does. And if that space is not for me, then so be it. But it may be for countless other individuals, you know? So I want folks to always keep that in mind when they think about the landscape of services, not only in Chicago, but throughout the country, that there's something that they do that uniquely fills a gap that other spaces can't. Yeah. You know, I mean, there's lots of places that I don't necessarily patronize, but I know somebody loves it. So therefore, that's fine. You know?
Yeah, I think that it's really powerful that you said that too, because I've even very recently just been just like critical with like my thinking of that. Like if I say something against this, people will take my word for it. And I've been just hyper sensitive to those experiences. I think that we are in a very unique time, even in our country, you know, where we could go one or the other way. And it's important to understand we live in a state like Illinois that does have a lot of those resources. I think that you really do bring a lot of that to mind too. I think that a lot of us in our even in our activism, when we're calling out like, you know, certain places and things like that, I have learned that that could be so different.
We want purity over clarity.
Exactly. And I it's not everything's not
You're
clear.
Not gonna get it.
You know, I think that I have even had to realize there's my perception of reality and there's the actual reality that we live in, right? You know, and my perception of reality is just that. It's my perception.
That is your perception. So well put. And Terry, you know, having known you the time that I have, one of the joys about doing this work is to see our young people grow and mature into the leaders that they are, you know. And why I'm so passionate about youth work is if you invest in someone and you let them grow, you're going to see them become the person who they were always designed to be. So, you know, I just really want to commend you for that viewpoint because that took you to grow. Oh, yeah. To get to that person. Because I understand, right? Like there's a lot of people who make their vantage point canon law.
Oh, yeah. I used to be one of those people.
And that is so antithetical to what we name ourselves to be fighting for. People don't even realize sometimes how the oppressed act as the oppressor. Oh, yes. When we actually do that. You know, I'm like, that's, yeah.
No, and it's really good that you bring it up because it brings us like, one, to like how I want to wrap up this conversation, but like also to how we do a lot of the activism and how a lot of that sometimes changes over time. Yes. I think that for me, I never thought I'd be in a place where I wouldn't be on the streets and like holding signs and things like that. I think that I've truly had to understand that activism takes many forms in this work, and how we get to zero will look a lot of different ways. Yes. You know, I think that it also doesn't look like, you know, my opinion being the opinion people should live off of too, because my opinion, my lived experience, that's all it is. It's
that's
mine,
it, right?
You know? So I think that like a lot of that was through having conversations with you, you know, about like very real things. I think that even when we've had our experience working in spaces, you have given me some very sage advice that I not only took with me, I applied it to a lot. And I think that's important in this work too, is a lot of us who are youth, who come from that other side, who get into this work, we are literally looking to change the system sometimes. Yes. And I think that a lot of that looks like also introducing us to like, this is actually the system, you know?
It is a system. Exactly.
And it's like, it's a hard pill to swallow, but I think that once you understand that it is a system,
it is a system,
you either learn how to work within it or you find something that really speaks to you in a way that at 23, it was hard for me to really appreciate. I was like, oh my God, angry about like not everybody being as radical as me. And at 31, I have so much appreciation for,
If you burn down the house, where are we all going to live? Okay.
Exactly.
At some point, we have to find the balance.
Right.
We have to. The anger is righteous, but we also have to find sustainable solutions. I have this thing where I'm a firm believer in, you can't forsake the present for the future you want to see. I mean, the reality is like there are things set into place right now that we still need in order to survive and navigate.
Mm-hmm.
Unbridled capitalism is toxic. It is horrible. It is what drives so many isms and inequities in this world. But at the same time, we live in a system where we need money to survive, and that's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And I think that like it's allowing the room to have those conversations,
Yes.
and I think that like that is something I'm so happy you said it, because I'm like, it's just that's the reality. It doesn't mean that like we can't change it over time. It doesn't mean we can't grow from it, but we have to understand. I forgot the way you put it, but it was so perfect. But you have to understand the present that you live in.
You have to. You just have to.
And you can't live in that dream future, you know?
And I think that dreaming big is important, because it's how we all, got to attain some of the justices and liberties we have now, right? Because somebody dared to dream.
Right.
However, they did so in measured ways.
And it took work. It
took work and time and collaboration.
Oh yeah.
It did. It did. So it's just heartening to hear you say that. I want us in society to mature to a place where we begin to say, this was my experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
And not making a blanket indictment.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get to a place where we say, well, that wasn't my experience. I think sometimes things bear investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to approach things with a critical analysis more than we have a tendency to do in present society. Yeah. We just jump off the deep end.
I think that brings me to not my final question, mm-hmm. but a question that'll wrap up this conversation. And that question is a question I've been asking a lot of my guests this season. What are your thoughts on how do we get to zero? What does it take for us to get to that functioning number?
One, I love how nuanced you painted zero to be. And I think that that's it. So from a literal getting to zero, we need to increase access to PrEP. Mm-hmm. We need to make PrEP more convenient. We need, and when I say convenient, I mean in access and delivery. Mm-hmm. We need to hold pharmaceuticals accountable to the efficacy and the quality of the products that they're putting out. We need more education, and we need to own the fact that people have sex. What do you know?
Yeah, definitely that sex. Part.
We do. People are not wearing condoms, because if they were, then we would not see babies being born. So people clearly don't wear them. Okay, mm-hmm. It's just the truth. Let's just be real. Yeah. Let's be real. We need to think about getting to zero from a place of functionality. We need functional cures. We need to begin to think more about how can we continue to sustain zero in individuals living with HIV who are undetectable, but not just stop at undetectable. We need to begin to think about how do we reduce inflammation markers. We need to think about how do we talk about holistic HIV care beyond CD4s and viral loads. Getting to zero also means sustainable housing. It means equitable treatment in medical institutions. It means fair laws. It means competent research. It means so many things.
Yeah.
You know, it means equity in funding when it comes to organizations like Brave Space, like Life is Works, like, you know, Central Halsted, Howard Brown, like all of the work that we're all doing collectively,
Yeah.
you know, Task Force, oh my God, Project Vita, so many places are doing this work. University of Chicago, you know, there's so many places that are doing this work. And we all need to be locking arms in service of sustaining this zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I think that like collaboration is key. You know, I think that we all are greater together than we all are than
I
we are
love it.
like divided. You know, I think that's something I've seen that has been a little toxic to the work that I don't agree with. I would love to see a day where it's a collaborative effort where we have a large building that houses
We need to.
Howard Brown, AFC, Project Vita, and you can get a myriad of
We
service,
need
you know,
to.
because we serve
The
a
service
population
mall.
of people. Exactly. I know it sounds crazy, but I
It's the truth.
love the
That's a good point.
idea of like going to a building that you can go to a Howard Brown, you can
Yep.
go here for Chicago House for Housing, all these things that it's almost like a one-stop shop of
Yep.
these agencies working together to give you these warm handoffs, you know? And I think that if any city had the ability to do something like that with their service industry, it would be Chicago because we have people coming all over the Midwest and from farther to come to receive some of the best services that we have to offer that specifically cater to people of the
Hmm.
LGBTQIA population. And I think that that just speaks to the need, you
I
know?
think that another part of getting to zero means that we have to stop doing this in silos,
Mm,
and we have to dismantle this. Now, here's something that's very white supremacist. We need to dismantle this idea of wanting to be the only one.
yeah, definitely.
It's hard for us to own that, but we need to unpack our obsession with knocking others out the box to be the only one.
Yeah.
We we see that vile, nasty thing happening throughout leaders in community and in so many spaces all the time, and that prevents us from getting to zero.
Mm,
Um, there are spaces and organizations in this city that folks get up in arms about. Calling them to be shut down will do what?
yeah.
Will do what? Someone receives life-saving care at these spaces or that space or what have you. Do you have another alternative for them?
Yeah.
Do you have another alternative? Again, I don't believe in scorched earth.
Right.
You know, I don't, because I'm a person that says, well, and where do we go from there? You know, where do we go? What do we do from there? So that's another way that we get to zero, is recognizing that at some point, this has to be a joint effort.
Yeah, that's
And you
powerful.
gotta lay your stuff aside. You gotta
Um,
lay your stuff aside.
you brought up that really good point, and I know I said I'm gonna wrap the conversation up. I am. I think that I don't think I know I agree with you when I think about the question that if we burn this to the ground, what else do we
Then
have?
what do
You
we
know, and
have?
I think that that's something I truly had to like really appreciate, and I had to start, and that got me thinking like, okay, so how can you be solution based? That's something I love talking about
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
work interview anyway,
Mm-hmm.
because being solution based is really important to me. I think
Yes,
that certain these things need to exist
they do.
because if they don't, we don't have an alternative. We might need to change some of the ways that we do things, but they need to exist. I think that like just being very frank, no one can do a lot of that on the scale of the work that they're like that we see is being done when it comes to the healthcare system.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that anyone is willing to take that
They're
on.
not.
So with that being said, one, I want to thank you for this
Thank you
conversation.
for having me.
It's been so illuminating. I think that every time I talk to you, I think that you pour new knowledge into me or a new way of looking at something. But I want to thank you for the work that you are doing here at
Thank you.
Brave Space Alliance for not just the next generation of like LGBTQIA people, but for the community of Black people. You
Hmm.
know, I think that that's a part of this work that people don't also understand, that like we serve a lot of folks that are not just LGBT, but like
No, not
a
at
lot of
all.
Black folks that
Yes.
don't feel comfortable going nowhere else and won't
Seriously.
feel respected going anywhere else. So with wrapping that up, I want you to talk to us about how can folks find out more about Brave Space Alliance, how can they donate,
Mhm.
and you know if they're looking to volunteer or represent.
Absolutely. So, a quick and easy way is to stop by, come see me. I'm gonna tell you the truth. As I kind of said at the top of the segment, I feel like I'm one of the most known unknown people. I pride myself on my approachability, and I'm easy to talk to. So if you ever want to talk to me, come talk to me. Probably be better off asking me. So that's one thing. For folks in Cyberland, obviously go to bracefacealliance.org. We are working on a new website, so stay tuned to that. In terms of donations, again, you can go to bravespace.org. I believe it's /donate, and you can do so there. We are always looking for in-kind donations like new and gently used clothing for our Dignity Suites, where individuals can access those gender-affirming clothing whenever they want for whatever they want. Um, Volunteerism, again, time, talent, and treasure. We always need volunteers to come in and lend their amazing skill sets and service to what we do at Brave Space Alliance. And volunteers look like more than helping to tidy up or stock the pantry. No, you know what? We need volunteers who know how to do tech stuff. We need volunteers who know how to do legal things. Like, don't box yourself in for what volunteerism can look like. We need volunteers who love data entry because oh God, what a tedious thing. But we need data entry, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things that we need volunteers for. So please, by all means, if you have a talent, if you have a skill set that we can benefit from, don't be shy. We absolutely need it for sure.
Yes, I definitely encourage you all to visit Brave Space Alliance online. They have a volunteer tab. Someone can reach out to you. I think that it's incredible because you are serving the people directly where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as someone who has received a lot of like resources as a young person, who's now an adult, I think that these were the resources that essentially saved my life. You know, I think that
That's right.
if I needed clothes, if I needed a haircut, access to a doctor's appointment, you know, because there's so many other like, you know, handoffs too. So
Mm-hmm.
I really do like just applaud you for your work that you're doing here. It's incredible. I thank you for sitting
Thank you.
down with
Of
me.
course.
I encourage you all to find out more about Brave Space Alliance. And also, last note, we will be having a screening of Journey to Zero at the end of the month, August 28th. You can go online and RSVP. Tickets are going fast. And also, if you are interested in setting up your own screening of documentaries 1 through 3, please don't hesitate to reach out to us online. I'd love to come out to y'all and talk to y'all about the film, maybe get a panel going. But this has been Tea with Terry, and I hope you all have a great one.
Have a
And
good one.
yeah, take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.